You're 20 minutes into a movie you don't like. You're checking the time, then checking it again. And you still don't turn it off. You tell yourself it would be a waste. That same moment shows up in bigger places. And the reason usually isn't discipline or laziness. It's that stopping can feel like admitting something painful. Most people call this the sunk cost fallacy and move on. But the label isn't the useful part. The useful part is noticing how the loop feels in your body. It often starts with a small tightening in the chest, or a hot defensive thought like, I've already put too much into this. Then the decision stops being about what happens next. It becomes about protecting what already happened. Functionally, the pattern is simple. Past time, money, effort, and embarrassment start acting like a reason to continue, even though they can't be recovered either way. The mind treats quitting as turning those past costs into a confirmed loss, so it looks for a way to keep the story open. Staying in feels like keeping a chance alive, even when the chance is shrinking. When this shows up, a short ritual can interrupt it without turning it into a life philosophy. Step 1 is name the loop. Not the whole situation, just the loop. Past cost is steering this. Step 2 is cut the thread. Separate what's already spent from what you'd spend next. Step 3 is reset on repeat. Make the next decision as a fresh one, then make it again later. A person can do that in 10 seconds while standing in a kitchen, or sitting in a parking lot, or hovering over a renew subscription button. Maya runs a small side business on weekends. One night she's staring at a project she agreed to months ago. The client keeps adding changes. She's tired, but she keeps thinking, I've already put so many hours in. So here's what happens inside the loop. The hours start feeling like a reason. But the hours are already gone. Only the next hour is still negotiable. One driver is loss avoidance, not fear of failure in a big dramatic sense. More like the sting of imagining the moment you admit quietly that the effort didn't pay off. Continuing buys you relief from that sting for a little while. You can see it in small behavior. You keep scrolling a thread that's making you angry. You keep editing a document that isn't getting better. Stopping would mean facing the fact that the last 30 minutes didn't help. Another driver is identity pressure. People don't just invest money and time. They invest a version of themselves. I'm the kind of person who finishes. Quitting then feels less like a choice and more like a threat to who you are. This is where popular advice usually stops too early. It turns into never quit or quit more. That version misses that most people aren't protecting the project, they're protecting their self-image. A third driver is the near-fix effect. You get a tiny sign that things might turn around. A half-decent reply, a small sales bump, a good day at the gym after 2 bad weeks. And the mind treats that as proof you're one push away. The problem is that might feels the same as likely when you're already invested. So you buy another month. You add another feature. You give it one more chance, then one more chance again. A fourth driver is the audience you can feel, even if no one is watching. A manager you already told. Friends who heard you talk about it. A partner who knows how much you spent. Even if nobody would punish you, you can still picture the conversation. And that imagined conversation adds weight to continuing. The decision becomes social in your head, even when it's private in real life. None of this means the right move is always to stop. Sometimes continuing is reasonable because the future payoff is still strong. And sometimes it's reasonable because stopping would create a bigger mess. Context matters. And the evidence is mixed on whether simply naming the bias is enough to change what people do. But the loop has a tell. It shifts your language from, what do I want next, to, what have I already put in? That language shift is the moment things get distorted. Maya notices that tell late at night. She's not thinking about the next 2 hours. She's thinking about the last 2 months. And she can feel herself using the past as a leash. A common mistake here is treating discomfort as proof you should continue. The discomfort is real, but it isn't a compass. It often comes from imagining regret or embarrassment, not from the actual future value. So the feeling gets mistaken for a signal. Another common mistake is earning the right to quit. People create a finish line so they can leave with dignity. One more week, one more payment, one more conversation. That finish line tends to move the moment you reach it. A third common mistake is trying to outthink it in one sitting. People sit down and demand certainty. They want a perfect answer that makes them feel clean. That's rarely available, especially when the decision has trade-offs. At this point, 3 cognitive micro-tools help because they force the decision back onto the next step, not onto the past, and not onto your identity. The first micro-tool is the receipt test. Imagine you find a receipt that proves the past cost is already gone. No refunds, no store credit, no exception. Then ask one question. Knowing that, would I still pay the next cost? It's not about being cold. It's about stopping the mind from using unrecoverable costs as currency. A past payment is not a vote for a future payment. The second micro-tool is the fresh start question. Picture waking up tomorrow with none of the past investment attached to you. Same skills, same options, but no history. Then ask, would I start this again today at this price? This one stings because it exposes when you're staying only to avoid admitting something. It also shows when you're staying because the future case is actually strong. Either answer is information. The third micro-tool is the smallest reversible exit. Instead of quit or commit forever, you look for the smallest step that reduces exposure without detonating your life. A pause with a date, a scaled-down version, a polite no to the next add-on, a decision that can be revisited after new information arrives. This helps because the loop feeds on all or nothing choices. When the only options feel extreme, staying feels safer. A smaller exit breaks that false pressure. Maya uses this in a plain way. She doesn't decide whether her side business is worth it as a whole. She decides whether she will accept one more round of changes without a new agreement. That decision is small, and it changes the whole dynamic. There's a limit here that matters. This approach helps with choices where past investment is quietly hijacking the next step. It does not solve grief, financial emergencies, or situations where safety is on the line. Some decisions are heavy for reasons that have nothing to do with sunk costs. Still, the loop is common in normal life. It shows up in relationships that have become mostly maintenance. It shows up in degrees people no longer want. It shows up in subscriptions, routines, and long arguments that stopped being about the topic. And the loop survives because it offers a trade. It offers short-term relief from admitting loss. In exchange, it takes long-term time and attention. That trade can go unnoticed for years. So the practical center stays simple. Past cost is not a reason. Future cost is the only lever. And the next small decision is the only place you can act. Name the loop when you hear yourself defending the past. Cut the thread between what's gone and what's next. Reset on repeat because the pull comes back, especially when you're tired. Some people keep paying because stopping feels like a verdict. Some people keep trying because hope feels like proof. And sometimes the cleanest decision is just the one that reduces the next loss. The loop doesn't usually end with one dramatic choice. It ends with a few smaller choices that stop feeding it. And then the past stays past, which is what it was the whole time.